Chosen ones, this instruction is clear. Hold your tongue, this is not the time to talk. These words may sound severe to ears accustomed to constant noise, but wisdom has always spoken with a firm and steady voice. There are seasons when speech is powerful, and seasons when silence carries greater authority. The age we live in rewards quick responses, public opinions, and endless commentary, yet the way of faith has never been shaped by the urgency of the crowd. It has always been shaped by discernment, patience, and obedience to what the Word reveals in its appointed time. Silence is not weakness, it is restraint under instruction. Silence is not fear, it is strength disciplined by purpose. Scripture reminds us that even a fool is considered wise when keeping silent, and discerning when holding one's peace. Proverbs 17:28. This instruction is not given to diminish your voice, but to protect it, to preserve it, and to prepare it for the moment when it must speak with clarity and authority. There are moments when words leak power. They spill intention before preparation has been completed. They expose plans that have not yet been fortified by prayer, endurance, and testing. Faith has always required waiting, and waiting has always demanded silence. The psalmist wrote of quieting the soul like a weaned child with its mother, a posture of trust rather than demand. Psalm 131:2. In such stillness, the heart learns dependence. In such restraint, the spirit is trained. When everything within urges explanation, defense, or announcement, wisdom often says, "Be still." Not every question deserves an answer. Not every provocation requires a response. Some battles are not won by argument, but by endurance. Some victories are secured in silence long before they are seen in the open. The tongue, though small, carries weight beyond measure. Scripture declares that life and death are in its power. Proverbs 18:21. Words spoken too early can kill hope, confuse direction, and fracture unity. Words spoken without discernment can undo years of quiet preparation. That is why this instruction is clear. Hold your tongue. This is not the time to talk. There is a forming happening beneath the surface, a shaping that cannot be rushed by explanation or defended by debate. When seeds are planted, the soil is not asked to speak. It remains covered, hidden, and patient until the appointed season reveals what has been growing in secret. Faith has always walked a narrow path between promise and fulfillment. In that space, silence becomes a companion. Scripture recounts how restraint guarded destiny, how patience preserved calling, and how obedience often required saying nothing at all. The book of Ecclesiastes teaches that there is a time to keep silence and a time to speak. Ecclesiastes 3:7. Wisdom is not found in speaking often, but in speaking at the right time. Those who are chosen are not chosen because they speak loudly, but because they listen deeply. They listen to the word, to instruction, to correction, and to timing. Silence trains the ear, noise dulls it. In the quiet, motives are revealed. In the quiet, intentions are purified. When speech is removed, the heart is exposed. This is why silence can feel uncomfortable. It removes the ability to distract others and oneself. Yet this discomfort is not meant to harm, but to heal. Scripture urges believers to be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. James 1:19. This order is intentional. Listening comes first because understanding precedes wisdom. Speaking without listening is like building without foundation. The instruction to hold your tongue is not a denial of truth, but a discipline that ensures truth is not mishandled. There are voices that will pressure you to explain yourself. There are demands to clarify your position, justify your path or announce what is still unfolding. Yet the word teaches that guidance often comes, one step at a time, not through public declarations, but through quiet obedience. Trust is formed when movement follows instruction, not applause. Scripture reminds us that those who wait upon the Lord renew their strength. They do not exhaust themselves in premature motion or unnecessary speech. Isaiah 4:31. Strength is renewed in waiting, and waiting is sustained by silence. Silence also serves as protection. The book of Proverbs warns that those who guard their mouths preserve their lives, while reckless speech brings ruin. Proverbs 13:3. Not every listener is a keeper of wisdom. Not every ear is safe. There are truths meant for prayer before they are meant for proclamation. There are revelations meant for endurance before they are meant for explanation. Holding your tongue is sometimes the very thing that shields what has been entrusted to you. Silence is not secrecy born of fear, but stewardship born of understanding. The faithful walk has never been about proving oneself through words. It has been about demonstrating trust through obedience. The word consistently honors those who acted without announcing, who endured without complaining, who believed without constant explanation. Complaints arise when patience runs thin. Arguments emerge when confidence is shaken. Silence, however, is often the fruit of assurance. When the heart is anchored, the tongue does not rush. When faith is secure, it does not need constant defense. Scripture tells us that the battle is not woe, and by might or by power, but by the Spirit. Zechariah 4:6. Such victories are not secured through volume, but through alignment. There is also a refining that happens in silence. Words have the power to justify the self, but silence invites examination. In quiet moments, pride is confronted, humility is cultivated, and dependence is restored. Lamentations speaks of the good that comes from waiting quietly for salvation. Lamentations 3:26. Waiting quietly is not passive resignation, it is active trust. It is choosing to believe that the word is sufficient even when explanations are withheld. It is choosing faith over frustration. The instruction to hold your tongue is especially vital when emotions are stirred. Anger seeks expression, fear seeks reassurance, and impatience seeks release. Yet Scripture cautions that human anger does not produce righteousness, James 1:20. Silence creates space for discernment. It interrupts impulsive reactions and invites measured response. Many regrets are born from moments when silence was ignored. Many restorations begin when restraint is embraced. The wise understand that not every emotion must be voiced, and not every thought must be shared. This is also a season of listening for direction rather than broadcasting intention. Faith grows when the inner life is strengthened. The Psalms repeatedly call the soul to quietness, to rest in hope, and to wait for instruction. Psalm 62:5. In such stillness, alignment is restored. When voices are silenced, the heart becomes attentive. When distractions fade, purpose becomes clearer. The chosen are often set apart not by what they say, but by what they refuse to say until the time is right. Silence does not mean absence of action. It means action rooted in obedience rather than explanation. The hands may work while the mouth rests. The feet may move while the tongue waits. Scripture teaches that faith without works is dead, James 2:17. Yet it never teaches that faith must always announce its works. There is a holy anonymity in obedience, a sacred covering that allows growth without interference. The Father who sees in secret rewards openly, Matthew 6:4, and that reward is not accelerated by commentary. There are also moments when silence becomes testimony. When provoked, restraint speaks louder than rebuttal. When accused, patience often reveals truth more clearly than argument. Proverbs teaches that a gentle answer turns away wrath, Proverbs 15:1, and sometimes the gentlest answer is no answer at all. Silence can disarm hostility. It can expose the emptiness of accusation. It can allow truth to stand without defense. The chosen understand that vindication does not always come through words, but through time and fruit. Holding your tongue is also an act of surrender. It acknowledges that control is not found in constant speech, but in trust. It releases the need to manage perception and places confidence in divine ordering. The psalmist declared trust not in chari, ox or horses, but in the name of the Lord, Psalm 27. Such trust does not anxiously explain itself. It rests, it waits, it believes that what has been promised will be fulfilled in its season. This instruction is clear because the stakes are high. Words spoken out of season can derail focus. They can invite unnecessary opposition. They can burden the spirit with regret. Silence, on the other hand, creates margin for growth. It allows space for correction, redirection, and strengthening. Proverbs teaches that plans succeed with counsel, Proverbs 2018, and counsel is best received in listening, not in talking. The chosen are learners before they are speakers. In this season, let silence shape character. Let restraint deepen wisdom. Let waiting strengthen trust. The word assures that those who humble themselves will be lifted up, Proverbs 29:23. Humility often expresses itself through quiet obedience rather than loud declaration. There is a lifting that comes not from self-promotion but from faithfulness in unseen places. There is a preparation that happens when the tongue rests and the heart listens. Do not mistake silence for delay without purpose. Scripture consistently reveals that waiting is never wasted when aligned with faith. Those who sow in tears reap with songs of joy, Psalm 126:5. But the sowing happens quietly, beneath the soil, unseen by the crowd. The harvest speaks when the time comes. Until then, the instruction remains, hold your tongue. This is not time to talk. There is still shaping happening, still strengthening underway, still alignment being secured. The rhythm of faith continues in quiet steps, steady trust, and patient obedience, as the word works deeply within, preparing what will one day be revealed when the season shifts and silence gives way to speech in its appointed time, and the mouth that has been guarded releases words refined by waiting, rooted in truth, and carried by wisdom that has learned to listen before daring to speak. As the journey continues forward in stillness, endurance, and unwavering trust in what has been written and promised, even as the path ahead remains unfolding, unseen, and held in sacred quiet. Silence, when embraced with faith, becomes a form of worship. It is the posture of a heart that trusts without needing constant reassurance. In the quiet, faith matures beyond emotion and settles into conviction. Scripture reminds us that faith comes by hearing, and hearing by the word, Romans 10:17. Hearing requires stillness. A voice raised above all others cannot receive instruction. This is why the instruction to hold your tongue is not merely practical but spiritual. It creates space for revelation, for correction, and for alignment. The chosen are not driven by impulse, They are guided by discernment, shaped in moments where speech is restrained and listening is prioritized. There is a cost to silence, but there is also a greater cost to careless speech. Words spoken in frustrati can undo peace. Words spoken in pride can fracture unity. Words spoken in fear can limit vision. The book of Proverbs repeatedly warns against hasty speech, teaching that the one who speaks without thinking brings trouble upon themselves. Proverbs 2:9-20. Silence is not avoidance, it is wisdom applied. It is the decision to pause before responding, to weigh words before releasing them, and to consider timing as carefully as content. In seasons of testing, silence becomes even more critical. Trials reveal what has truly taken root. When pressure mounts, the tongue often reveals the condition of the heart. Yet Scripture teaches that endurance produces character, and character produces hope. Romans 5:3-4. Endurance is strengthened when complaints are resisted and trust is maintained. Silence under pressure is not denial of pain, but refusal to let pain dictate response. It is choosing faith over reaction, patience over protest, and trust over explanation. There are moments when silence feels like invisibility. The chosen may feel overlooked, misunderstood, or ignored. Yet Scripture reminds us that the eyes of the Lord range throughout the earth to strengthen those whose hearts are fully committed to Him. 2 Chronicles 16:9. Visibility before people is not the same as being known by God. Much of what is built for lasting impact is formed in obscurity. Roots grow deep in darkness long before branches are seen. Silence protects this process, shielding it from premature exposure. The discipline of silence also teaches self-control. The fruit of the Spirit includes self-control, Galatians 5:22-23, and the tongue is one of its greatest tests. To hold one's tongue when provoked, questioned, or pressured requires strength that goes beyond personality. It is a strength drawn from trust in divine justice and timing. Scripture assures that vengeance belongs to the Lord, Romans 12:19. When this truth is embraced, the need to defend oneself through words diminishes. Silence becomes an act of faith in righteous judgment rather than personal vindication. In quiet seasons, clarity is sharpened, distractions fade, and priorities realign. The psalmist spoke of meditating on the law day and night, likening such a life to a tree planted by streams of water that yields fruit in its season. Psalm 1:2-3. Meditation requires stillness. Fruit appears in season, not on demand. Silence honors this process. It acknowledges that growth cannot be forced by constant speech, but is cultivated through consistent faithfulness. There is also a humility learned in silence. It acknowledges that not every thought is worthy of expression, not every opinion is necessary, and not every moment requires commentary. Scripture teaches that knowledge puffs up, but love builds up. 1 Corinthians 8:1. Love often chooses restraint. Love listens. Love waits. Love understands that words can wound as easily as they can heal. Silence, when guided by love, becomes an instrument of peace. The chosen are often misunderstood because their obedience does not always align with public expectation. Silence can be misinterpreted as weakness or uncertainty, yet Scripture consistently reframes it as wisdom. Isaiah spoke of strength found in quietness and trust. Isaiah 3:15. This strength is not loud, but it is enduring. It does not demand recognition, yet it sustains through adversity. Those who understand this are not shaken by misinterpretation. They know that obedience is not validated by applause but by alignment. There are times when silence guards against unnecessary entanglement. Arguments invite escalation. Explanations invite debate. Silence, however, allows space for resolution without confrontation. Proverbs teaches that starting a quarrel is like breaching a dam, so drop the matter before a dispute breaks out. Proverbs 17:14. Holding one's tongue can prevent conflicts that drain energy and distract from purpose. The chosen recognize when engagement is unproductive and choose restraint over reaction. Silence also cultivates patience. Waiting without speaking trains the heart to endure without complaint. Scripture affirms that patience is essential to receiving what has been promised. Hebrews 10:36. Impatience often seeks release through speech, through venting, questioning, or demanding clarity. Silence resists this impulse and anchors the soul in trust. It declares that timing is not controlled by urgency but by purpose. There is a sacred rhythm to faith. That includes pauses. Even creation itself reflects cycles of rest and activity. The command to rest was woven into the foundation of faith, reminding believers that productivity is not diminished by stillness. Exodus 28:10. Silence mirrors this principle in speech. It creates rest for the soul and prevents exhaustion of spirit. Those who constantly speak rarely rest internally. Silence restores balance. In relationships, silence can be an act of grace. It prevents harsh words spoken in moments of misunderstanding. It allows space for reflection rather than reaction. Scripture encourages believers to pursue peace and mutual edification. Romans 14:19. Sometimes peace is preserved not by saying the right thing but by refraining from saying the wrong thing. Silence can de-escalate tension and create room for healing. The instruction to hold your tongue also acknowledges that revelation unfolds progressively. Understanding deepens over time. Speaking too soon can lock one into incomplete perspective. Scripture reminds us that now we see in part and know in part. 1 Corinthians 13:9. Silence honors this partial understanding and allows space for growth. It resists the temptation to declare conclusions before the full picture is revealed. There is also an element of trust in being misunderstood for a season. Silence does not rush to correct every false assumption. It entrusts truth to time. Scripture assures that truth will ultimately prevail. John 8:32. Those who are ident in this promise do not feel compelled to clarify every misinterpretation. They trust that fruit will speak louder than words and time will reveal what speech cannot enforce. The chosen are often led through seasons where obedience feels hidden. Actions may not be acknowledged, sacrifices may go unnoticed, and faithfulness may seem unrewarded. Yet Scripture promises that nothing done in faith is in vain. 1 Corinthians 15:58. Silence sustains faith in these moments. It prevents bitterness from taking root and preserves joy through trust. It allows obedience to remain pure, untainted by the desire for recognition. Holding the tongue also sharpens discernment. When speech is limited, observation increases. Listening becomes intentional. Scripture speaks of wisdom crying out, yet it is often drowned by noise. Proverbs 1:20. Silence creates the conditions where wisdom can be heard. It tunes the heart to instruction and correction. Those who speak less often learn more deeply. There is a refining fire in restraint. Each moment of withheld speech shapes character. Each resisted impulse strengthens discipline. Scripture teaches that trials test faith like fire tests gold. 1 Peter 1:7. Silence under trial purifies motive. It reveals whether faith is rooted in trust or in the need for validation. The chosen emerge from such refinement with clarity and resilience. This instruction remains clear because the season demands it. There are alignments still forming, lessons still unfolding, and preparations still underway. Speaking prematurely can disrupt this work. Silence allows it to continue uninterrupted. It honors the process, it respects the timing, it trusts the author of the journey more than the opinions of observers. As the journey continues, silence becomes less of a burden and more of a refuge. It becomes familiar, even comforting. It teaches that identity is not established by constant expression but by steady obedience. Scripture assures that those who delight in the law of the Lord are firmly planted. Psalm 1:1-2. Such planting requires stillness. Growth follows patience. In this quiet perseverance, faith deepens beyond words. Trust matures beyond explanation. Hope anchors beyond circumstance. The tongue rests, not because there is nothing to say, but because wisdom knows when to wait. The rhythm of faith continues through unspoken prayers, unseen endurance, and quiet obedience. The instruction still stands, steady and unyielding, holding space for what is yet to be revealed, what is still forming beneath the surface, what will emerge in its appointed season, as silence continues to guard, shape, and strengthen the chosen along the unfolding path, where listening remains active, trust remains firm, and the journey moves forward without haste, without noise, and without conclusion yet revealed. Silence also teaches reverence. It acknowledges that not everything sacred needs immediate articulation. Scripture records moments when the people were instructed to stand in awe, to be still, and to recognize the holiness of what was unfolding before them. Habakkuk 2:20. Awe is diminished when familiarity breeds constant commentary. Reverence grows where restraint is practiced. Holding the tongue is sometimes an act of honoring what is weighty, holy, and beyond casual speech. The chosen learn that reverence is preserved not only in what is said, but in what is intentionally withheld. There is a deep work that happens when silence confronts insecurity. Many words are born not from wisdom but from fear, fear of being overlooked, misunderstood, or forgotten. Silence exposes these fears and invites trust to replace them. Scripture assures that those who seek first the kingdom will have what they need added to them. Matthew 6:33. This promise frees the heart from striving for validation through speech. It anchors identity in faith rather than recognition. In silence, the heart learns contentment. The apostle wrote of learning to be content in every circumstance, whether in abundance or need, Philippians 4:11-12. Contentment quiets the urge to explain oneself or compare journeys. It allows the chosen to rest in their assignment without measuring progress against others. Silence becomes a companion to contentment, guarding peace from the noise of comparison and competition. There are seasons when instruction is received not through words but through observation. Watching how faith is lived, how patience is practiced, and how endurance is sustained often teaches more than sermons. Scripture encourages believers to follow examples of faith and patience. Hebrews 6:12. Observation requires attention, and attention flourishes in silence. When the tongue rests, the eyes and ears learn. Silence also strengthens prayer. Not all prayer is spoken. There are groanings too deep for words, as Scripture describes, where the Spirit intercedes beyond articulation. Romans 8:26. These moments of wordless communion deepen reliance on divine understanding rather than human expression. Silence in prayer is not emptiness, it is intimacy. It is trusting that even unspoken burdens are known and held. The chosen often carry burdens they cannot explain. Calling, responsibility, and preparation can feel heavy without clear language to describe them. Silence becomes a way to carry weight without complaint. Scripture speaks of casting cares upon the Lord because He cares, 1 Peter 5:7. This casting does not always involve explanation to others. It often happens quietly, privately, and faithfully. In a world that rewards immediacy, silence teaches patience with process. Scripture reveals that growth often happens gradually, like a farmer waiting for precious fruit from the earth, being patient until the rains come, James 5:7. The farmer does not rush the harvest by speaking to the soil. He waits. Silence honors the process that patience requires. There are also times when silence preserves unity, words spoke. Carelessly can divide communities and fracture trust. Scripture urges believers to maintain the unity of the Spirit in the bond of peace. Ephesians 4:3. Peace is often protected by restraint. Silence can prevent misunderstandings from escalating and disagreements from hardening into division. Silence trains discernment in timing. Knowing when to speak is as important as knowing what to say. Scripture teaches that a word fitly spoken is like apples of gold in settings of silver, Proverbs 2:5-11. Such words require timing, preparation, and wisdom. Silence allows words to ripen. It ensures that when speech comes, it carries weight rather than noise. In silence, endurance is tested and strengthened. Waiting without speaking requires resolve. It resists the temptation to quit, complain, or compromise. Scripture encourages believers to run with perseverance the race set before them, Hebrews 12:1. Perseverance is sustained not by constant expression but by steady commitment. Silence helps maintain focus on the path rather than distractions along the way. There is also healing found in silence. Some wounds are aggravated by constant retelling. Silence allows healing to progress without reopening pain. Scripture speaks of a time to heal, Ecclesiastes 3:3, and healing often requires rest from explanation. Silence gives space for restoration without pressure. The instruction to hold your tongue is not indefinite but intentional. It recognizes that preparation precedes revelation. Scripture records how wisdom was often revealed after periods of waiting and testing. Those who endured quietly were later entrusted with greater responsibility. Silence prepares the heart for stewardship. Silence also refines motives for speaking. When speech is limited, motives are examined. Is the desire to speak rooted in service or in self? Scripture encourages doing nothing from selfish ambition or vain conceit, Philippians 2:3. Silence exposes ambition and redirects it toward humility. It ensures that when speech eventually comes, it serves rather than elevates. The chosen learn that silence is not passive resignation but active trust. It is choosing obedience even when clarity is partial. Scripture assures that the steps of the righteous are ordered by the Lord, Psalm 37:23. Trusting this ordering reduces the need to narrate every step. Silence allows the journey to unfold without constant commentary in moments of correction. Silence allows humility to take root. Defensiveness seeks speech. Humility accepts instruction quietly. Scripture teaches that whoever heeds discipline shows the way to life. Proverbs 10:17. Silence, in correction, opens the heart to growth rather than resistance. Silence also guards against pride. Pride seeks recognition, humility accepts obscurity. Scripture warns that pride goes before destruction and a haughty spear. It before a fall, Proverbs 16:18. Silence keeps pride in check by removing platforms for self-exaltation. It anchors identity in calling rather than applause. There are seasons when silence is the loudest declaration of trust. When circumstances challenge belief, silence refuses to give doubt a voice. Scripture records moments when faith endured without explanation, trusting that deliverance would come in its time. Such faith speaks through endurance rather than argument. The chosen understand that silence does not erase truth, it preserves it. Truth spoken at the wrong time can be dismissed, misunderstood, or resisted. Silence protects truth until hearts are ready to receive it. Scripture reminds that wisdom cries aloud, yet not all heed her call. Proverbs 1:24. Silence waits for readiness. As silence becomes familiar, it reshapes communication. Words become measured, intentional, and rooted in understanding. Speech becomes an instrument of building rather than reaction. Scripture encourages speech that builds others up according to their needs. Ephesians 4:29. Silence prepares the heart for such speech. The journey continues with quiet strength. Each unspoken word becomes an act of discipline. Each restrained response becomes an offering of trust. Scripture assures that those who sow righteousness reap a sure reward. Proverbs 11:18. The sowing often happens quietly, unseen and uncelebrated. In this ongoing stillness, faith deepens, trust steadies, purpose clarify. The instruction remains unchanged because the work is ongoing. Hold your tongue. This is not the time to talk. There are still depths to be formed, roots to be strengthened, and alignment to be completed. Silence continues to serve as guard, teacher, and companion, shaping the chosen through patience, obedience, and unwavering trust as the path unfolds step by step, without haste, without noise, and without final words yet spoken, allowing the journey to continue forward in quiet faith, steady endurance, and watchful listening as what has been promised continues to mature beneath the surface, awaiting its appointed time to be revealed. And so the call remains firm and gentle at once, to trust the wisdom of silence until the appointed moment arrives. This is not restraint without hope, nor waiting without purpose, but obedience shaped by faith and confidence in divine timing. The word assures that those who commit their way to the Lord and trust in Him will see it brought to pass. Psalm 37:5. What has been planted in quiet obedience will not remain hidden forever. What has been guarded in silence will one day speak with clarity and power. Until that time, the chosen are invited to rest in stillness, to walk faithfully without explanation, and to believe that every withheld word has been counted. Every unseen act has been noted, and every quiet step has meaning. For in due season the truth will rise, the purpose will unfold, and the voice that learns silence will speak with wisdom, authority, and grace, bearing fruit that proves waiting was never in vain.